All right. So, welcome everybody. Let's see. We're wrapping up this month. What were we talking about this month? Change. We were talking about change this month. The first week we talked about individual change, and this week we talked about organizational change. And I got pretty heavy in the business world, uh, because they make money based on this stuff. So it's very important to them, and there's a lot of lessons that we can learn, especially over the last century, like I covered. So I will just open it up. If anybody has any thoughts, I can give you a kickstart question. Um, did you find the video true, illuminating? Do you feel a change in the way organizations operate, whether what you see in business or what you've seen in the Air Force, with regards to, say, chasing profits versus quality of life? What are your thoughts on that? Anybody feel free to hop in.
I'll hop in. Um, it wasn't doesn't exactly pertain to the question that you just posed, but I was watching the Simon Sinek video that you also posted, and one thing that I thought was really interesting was he at first you think he's going to say you need to target the majority because that's where a lot of the people are. That's how you're going to make the biggest change, is when you target the biggest people. But he ended up saying you want to target the small few that are really motivated. And then once people see that change is possible, because the motivated ones are the ones that you could probably get to change the most, then you're going to target the majority. I thought that was really interesting because I remember watching this one video about, it was like a social experiment, and they had one person facing the back of the elevator, and then they had everyone else come in, and then people started facing the back of the elevator. So the majority are going to want to do like what they see other people doing. So you have to target the motivated people that want to change, and then you're going to target the majority. And I've definitely seen that, where people are on the fence, like, do I want to do this? Is this something that's cool or that we're about? But then you see other people buying in, and you're like, okay, I guess I can buy in. So I think that's definitely true, and I've seen it, where you want to target the people that are really motivated and like want to make a difference. And once you get their buy-in, then you're going to get the majority, because people want to do what other people are doing.
Yeah, that's a great point. And from an officer perspective, I would think it's important whenever you, because we talk about collaboration a lot, right? We don't really use that formal directive power. You want change and acceptance and culture to kind of be organic, right? So if there's change that you want to affect, part of that collaboration is figuring out who the influencers are, right? Who ideally, people who hold formal power can also hold some of that informal power, but that's not always true. So it's important to find the people who their peers listen to, who, as the boss would say, men of influence, women of influence, who those people are, and hopefully they're the motivated ones who can embrace change and help you affect that. So you don't have to be directive, and you can kind of kickstart movements that way. Any other thoughts in general on what we discussed? Any of the videos posted? Feel free to speak up. Okay, I'll throw out another random question. As far as our organization, or you could look at the Air Force as a bigger entity, what changes do you see coming in the way we've been doing business, how we'll do business in the future? Reading the tea leaves, what do you see out there? What are you concerned about as far as organizational change?
I can jump in real quick. I think it's making a technological shift a little bit. Obviously, there's processes in every company that change with technology. I think ours specifically, a big one is Ops Next. But it takes a personal aspect out of it, which is difficult, but sometimes it can make processes a little more fluid. So.
Yeah, we've got COVID really helped expedite some of the tech that we're trying to put into practice. But unfortunately, the whole point of that was for efficiency, to give people their time back, not only to make ops better, but also to increase quality of life. But, the thing that kickstarted it, COVID also took the humanity piece out of it. So we don't get as much, as many touches with our people. Is there anything you guys are doing or things that you think we could do to better keep people connected and help ensure that that human connection isn't lost?
Hey, Colin Kramer, can you hear me?
Oh, hey girl, what's up? I was playing some Chris Cornell for you. That's our new intro music.
I did enjoy it. Very Midwestern. I would say, I think the big group meetings and stuff that we have, just using the video. I know I'm not on video right now. I'm like setting up birthday stuff for Jay. But I think, just seeing people's faces is really a big part of it, and getting, to touch base every once in a while. And hopefully flights are doing that as well throughout the week. But then also, outside of the squadron as well, seems like people have been doing a good job. Obviously, I've been here longer, so it's easier for me rather than someone who just got here. But like reaching out to, other people in the squadron, just seeing if you like, hey, you want to hang out, that sort of thing. I think that's something that everyone could always do a little bit better on, especially with newer people, because it's hard when you're new. So if you know someone who just got here, invite them to hang out.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, the new people, they show up and, it's like, hey, we got Rom, welcome, but don't come into the squadron. Go find a house, and they're kind of dangling. So that's where, thank you to all the people who are sponsors. You guys are key to keeping them wired in until we can actually get them in the building and kind of fold them into everything. Thanks for doing that. I'll shift gears here. Maybe something that'll spark a little more discussion. I did throw out the statement that I think we're really good as officers and pilots. We focus a lot on CT and studying and all that stuff, job related. But I'll just say I don't think we work on the leadership piece as much. Am I wrong? What do you do to kind of keep yourself in the the officer developmental mindset? What are you reading out there? I'm curious. Anybody want to throw out what they've been working on, reading, thinking about?
I'll jump in if nobody else is going to. I know I forgot whose reading list it was on, but I just recently read The Alchemist, if anybody has read that. And it talks about like following your own personal legend and getting over setbacks and just seeing them as part of the journey. And I think it's a pretty good modern fable is how I describe it, but it's also a very good book to read if you're like we are right now, stuck inside your own homes, not being able to see each other very often and losing perspective on progressing in your own personal goals and your own personal legend is how the book describes it. and just getting perspective, getting kind of an outside view of like how constantly pushing towards those goals is a good thing instead of becoming stagnant in how, and because it is so easy right now to become stagnant. But I thought that was a good one. It's very short if anybody else wants to read it. It's only like, it'll probably take you a couple days to read.
Anyone else got any good books? I have a feeling if I asked for a Netflix series, everybody would have a suggestion. But all right, maybe book and podcast.
Can you guys hear me okay, or am I broken up? Okay. So I'm never one to not point to a book every once in a while. So I don't think I've given this one yet. So this is Upstream. It's by Dan Heath. Just gonna throw it on there just for a second. All right, so the gist of this book, it's essentially probably about 20 small stories that are put together that talks about how you can solve problems before they become problems for your team. And when you think about that, you're like, well, I don't have a crystal ball. How do I know if a problem's coming down when I don't have it yet, right? It seems a little bit counterintuitive. But what he gets at is once you understand your team, once you understand, like, for lack of a better term, your mission, right? You can start seeing barriers to performance before they get to you. I'll give you a perfect example. From the time I took the DO seat 2 years ago, to the time that Fez took the DO seat, one of the biggest things that I saw that we could improve on was not just the technological side, but was essentially empowering and making our human capital better, i.e. increasing conversations, increasing the timing, and the linking that with essentially when we have missions coming down the pipeline from TACC, because we weren't having things like huddles, right? And I know Jake the Pledge is on here, a couple other folks that were previous, schedulers or working in ops, that we just didn't do like huddles. We didn't get together and talk about what training was doing, what our priorities were, what missions should be linked with what load masters. So we started working towards this whole Ops Next thing, going digital with our mission binder builds, going digital with our electronic mission binders that are going on the roads of the crews. And now we've kind of gone to full fruition with Major Fernandez, who's, taking it to the next level with our Ops Next dashboard, right? So the point I'm getting at is whenever the fires happened last week, and I wrote that letter out to everybody last night because I just needed to. I felt like I had to communicate in some way. Again, going back to Kelsey's point about us being separated and not seeing each other face to face, is that we were ready for that problem before it even came to us. Why? Because we knew the capacity of each individual. We knew who our game players were, or our playmakers were, I should say, in each small team. And we created the mechanisms ahead of time so that when the crap hit the fan, like it did on that Wednesday morning at 0300 when I texted Major Fernandez and said, just get ready for this day, it's going to be a doozy. We were ready, guys. And we launched 8 of 8 C5s in a short SOE at the start of 1800 at night when the whole base is evacuating. And it was a massive success for us. And guess what? We were the only airframe that had orders that were like the go, no goes were just complete, as opposed to a blank sheet of paper that said, here are like the scribbled 8 people that are on your jet, go do, right? And there was some drama that took place in other bases that I won't highlight here because it's not my place. But we were well ahead of the problem. And essentially what took place was we were upstreaming those problems before they even got to us. So this is a really good book. One of the chapters, chapter 6, talks about how do you execute change. The title is How Will You Change the System? And really the two main points on that chapter 6 of this book is ownership and a long-term vision. I'm going to give you guys one more peek under the tent. And sometimes squadron commanders won't share this kind of stuff, but I don't care. I'm going to share it. So I've gotten a little bit of kickback from, this is the trust tree, so I just ask you guys keep this amongst our team. A little bit of kickback from the FTU down at Kelly for sending folks down. We know that if they're at base Columbus, Laughlin, wherever, Dover, guess what? They're ready to move again. And guess what? I know they were already an IP because I made them IP because I found the qualities amongst the team, right? Everyone voted on this, that they would be the talent we want to retain in the C5 enterprise. So that's the second point of this book, Upstream, is ownership and a long-term vision for change. I'm not looking at the short game, guys. A lot of what we're doing, like Colonel Kramer's talking about what professional development topics we're utilizing, what the all-call themes are. There is a long-term vision to this, and you're part of that. So I'll stop talking. That was like 8 minutes. I already talked too much. Over to everybody else. What do you guys think?
It's a quiet crowd today. Yeah, so talking about long-term vision, yeah, and this is something we picked up in some of the books we were reading. And it also goes into some of the behaviors I alluded to about the business world. And I don't want to get too much into it, but basically the idea is corporations started chasing profits because they tied their success to share price, which is basically measured quarter to quarter. Back in the day, before they did that, it was about the long-term health and life cycle of the business, which was a little better at taking care of people. But then you started seeing in the 70s, 80s, 90s, layoffs became common, and Initech share price would go up a quarter a point, which was great because that's how the CEO's compensation was determined. So they started sacrificing people for profit. And a lot of the new thinking is that's not a sustainable model. So how do we do better at taking care of people? How do we build for the future? Well, it's really easy. My job would be really easy if I could hold on to, I don't know, Lilly for 20, 30 years. That would be great, but we can't in the military. We get you maybe 3, 4 years. And so how do you do succession planning? How do you not just ensure that the Double Deuce is good during, say, Colonel Trumbull's command? How do we ensure that the squadron will thrive 10, 15, 20 years down the road? And that's part of the knot that we're trying to untangle with talent management and our education and what we're doing. So just to add a little more to Colonel Trumbull's point. So that'll lead me to a question. How do you think we do? How are we doing, the Double Deuce, in our business? And I'll put the dichotomy there: people versus profit, or mission versus people. How do you think we do in the day-to-day? Are there things we can improve in the unit? Over to you guys.
I think one thing you said that kind of made me think was talking about how do you keep like the Double Deuce being awesome when we're all gone and there's different people that are now taking over. And that was one thing that my sister and I thought about when we were leaving like our little bubble of our tennis team, because we spent 4 years on this tennis team and created this awesome culture, and we wanted it like a sisterhood. We made a sisterhood, and we wanted it to last once we left because we thought it was pretty awesome. We worked together amazing. But when we left, we were like, we want this culture to keep going. And so one thing that we tried to instill was like this sense of culture. And I think that's what the Double Deuce has, is when you get people fired up and they love their job, that culture is alive. And so when you get new people in, you kind of want to like indoctrinate them what this culture is, what we stand for. So that way, when like we personally aren't there, the people that came in, they know what the culture is, and they're the ones that want to keep that culture alive because they bought in. So you kind of has to start with like the people that come in that are new, and you kind of indoctrinate them in this awesome culture. And then when we're gone, they're the ones passing it on. So you kind of have to, I think it stems from like an awesome culture. That's what I think can survive, is just like an everyday type of thing, what we stand for, and then getting people bought in.
That's so funny. I feel like Colonel Trumbull and I have had this conversation several times over the past couple weeks. So I'll just throw this question out for, and hopefully a number of people jump in. And Lily, you just begged the question. So what do we stand for? How do you articulate our culture? What does it mean to be a Muley?
I feel like I'd have to take like a couple of seconds to like write down some words, but I'll be thinking.
I definitely want to hear from well, hell, Burnham, man, we've been on this this carousel twice, so hopefully you got some adjectives you can throw out there, or Joel.
On what does it mean to be a muley? Dude, we're silent professionals. So I was in the squadron from 2010 to 2014, and the impact the C5 and specifically the 22nd has had on the enterprise, I'm talking at levels that we don't even fathom. Like as a young captain, I didn't see why what we did mattered. But my point is, under Colonel Ziner, Colonel Breeden, Colonel Pollock, Colonel Trumbull, like we do crazy things every day, and we don't brag about it. We're not the B-liners. We're not the Gucci boys who have this constant rivalry. We just do the mission, and we don't complain about it, and we do it with a sense of family. Those are the constants that I've seen over, those first 4 years in the squadron and these last 2.5 years in the squadron. I mean, silent professionals, man.
This is fertile ground. There's got to be more out there. Joel Loftus, talk to me.
I think over the past almost 4 years now, the things that stand out to me are the way that we've always gone to bat for each other. I've always found the 22nd as a place where, at least within the officer corps, I don't see a lot of backstabbing. I see friendly competition, but I see people who want the best for each other, which is, I think, what helps us to really develop a culture that's inclusive and just creates a community that people want to be a part of. So we want to see each other succeed, and I know from just the stories and things from other places that that's not always the case. So I think the fact that we celebrate each other's successes instead of maybe secretly trying to tear each other down, well, that seems like a pretty common sense thing. It's not common in a lot of places. And so I think the way that we take care of each other, whether it be career-wise, whether it be personally, when one person hurts, we all hurt. When one person succeeds, we all succeed. So
I want to jump on what Joel just said. That's a great point. So in an organization like ours, which is basically a meritocracy, right? So based on how well you do, all right, it's documented on a piece of paper, or an award or something, and then, good effort begets good opportunities and just keeps propagating. So it's very, very difficult, right, to not want to pump your own chest up, right, so to speak, highlight yourself amongst a group of your peers. But I'll be the first one to tell you, just like my commander's call, that collaboration is probably it's right up there with extreme ownership, expert in your craft. I want to see the collaboration. And if you're not a rocket scientist, you may not be the absolute best pilot, but if you're a builder of teams and you collaborate and you can work with those small groups of individuals to get something larger done, and work outside of your silo to bring those teams outside of the 22nd together to get after something bigger and better, that is what I see as probably the number one or number two trait that I want to see in an officer, right? Is if you can lead your teams, you can lead your peers. And I'm talking about also on the enlisted side, right? Down through your airmen to collaborate across those silos, inside the double deuce, outside the double deuce. That is what is important. Okay, it's not working for you, it's working for the team. And that's something that I watch with a microscope when I'm watching you guys interact with each other. I tell you that right now, that's a peek underneath the tent. And that's the same way our wing leadership works all the way down. Okay, so that's basically the key to this whole game, right? Is how well you can collaborate and work with your teammates to get after something bigger, whether that's flying your aircraft, whether that's leading your flight, right? Or leading your shop, wards and decks, for one, TLOs, CLOs, right? Within the double abuse. That's where it's at, guys. Okay. Teaching the CT, doing things like that, making each other better. That's what I watch. If you want to peek under the tent, that is what I watch. Thanks, Joel. That was a great point. Big piece of the double deuce culture.
And can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we got you.
All right, sweet. So first time on this video chat, so this is pretty cool. So coming in from the outside, previous Dover guy, but I do appreciate what Joel said. I think this squadron is vastly different from when I left from Dover, where I felt people were kind of not as much working together, kind of competing, if you will. But what I've noticed stepping into this squadron was the teamwork aspect. I hate to say it all, but it's teamwork makes the dream work, whatever. It's just that, and I literally lived in a bubble for the last 5 years doing RPAs where it was all ops oriented. So coming back to a squadron like this and kind of getting a fresh perspective is certainly valuable, and I very much appreciated. It's kind of recaged me as an officer. I will say though that, coming from ACC and the RPA community, there is a ton of work that's being done day in and day out. And when you're in the ops community, you forget about a lot of leadership stuff. And so just to kind of backtrack, as I was listening and taking notes, one thing that as far as ACC goes and some of at least the RPA communities that I left, they are not getting professionally developed. I feel like the last 5 years, all I've been doing is, fighting the enemy literally. And it's just, you don't get a lot of that mentoring, and you don't, you do it day in and day out, at least 4 to 8 hours a day, you miss out. And so I feel like I've lost a lot of that personal development, that professional development as well. Just because I was doing what the Air Force wanted me to do, but yet I was kind of stagnating as an officer. So, just going back to the fact that, what Forlini said, just, you have to, and I think what makes the difference here is, I'm hearing this as an 04, but if you're a lieutenant, a young guy, and you see that this is what the Air Force and how the Air Force is created, and this is the direction we're going, and this is kind of the why, it definitely helps. I would have probably appreciated the opportunity to hear some of these things many years ago and see it in action, if you will, too. But I think when you go into that perspective of, how we're operating now here at Travis in the 22nd, this is something that hopefully will carry on for years and years ahead. So I don't know, just some random thoughts, but just I do appreciate the teamwork when it comes to what the muleys are all about. And I think obviously it's more important now than ever, just because of everybody being displaced. So.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, a lot of us who've been through ACC we have what we like to call perspective. we gained some perspective going through ACC. Yeah, definitely true. I had the privilege of flying on a dollar ride last week. Ryan Robb's in the room. So perspective wise, for you got to go out on the road for the first time. What do you think it means to be a muley? Just having that first shot.
Well, I think the biggest thing, I think Lily kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but coming in and being new as a lieutenant, you kind of want to see where the culture of the squadron is, and like you follow what everyone else kind of teaches you right when you get in. And I feel like ever since like the first day that I showed up, I've talked to Jake the Pledge, Captain Will, Major Loftus, Lily, Tyler Weaver, like all of these people that I feel comfortable reaching out to and asking questions and kind of talking to. And I feel like, I mean, I've only been here for 2 months and I already feel that way. So I think that's kind of like a sign that the 22nd is doing what they're supposed to be doing and kind of setting the tone and the culture that you want to be seeing in a squadron. And that, again, this is from my little experience, but that's kind of how I feel. And then, yeah, even going on the road, it just felt like, I think Major Burnham was talking about being like a silent professional. And we were going through the entire thing, kind of being flexible the entire trip and adjusting. And I've learned that's all it is to be kind of a C5 pilot, kind of adjusting and going with kind of what's thrown at you. But we went through the whole mission, completed what we needed to do, came back, and yeah, I don't know. It feels good. The culture that the 22nd is kind of showing me for the first 2 months that I've been here. So that's what I got.
I'll say from my last squadron, I've enjoyed the transparency that the 22nd seems to be good at relaying information and getting everybody on the same page. And I know in my last squadron, everybody would be guessing about some issue that we're dealing with for 2 weeks, and then we'd finally figure out what leadership was thinking. And so it's a lot easier to be invested in the culture when there is that transparency and everybody feels like they're on the same sheet of music.
I'll add something real quick. When I came in brand new, Major Loftus was the chief pilot. And one thing he said was he was talking about his year group and his year group specifically in our squadron. And he was talking about how his year group, so many of them have made evaluator, and it was because his year group worked together and they were a team. And he alluded to this too. He was talking about, building each other up and not so much competing with each other. And he's seen how other year groups, they didn't look for each other's success. They only looked for their own success. And he talked about how being a muley is like wishing for other people's success as well as your own. And if you wish for people's success, and they're going to wish for your own as well. And like that was a big thing with his year group. And I've seen that translated it when you first come in as a lieutenant. We have our lieutenant mafia chat, and we're, it's a secret, but we're all like joking around and we ask each other questions and we pass along information. But really what we are is we're like our own small team, and like we handle things at the lowest level. And I feel like we build each other up in our mafia group chat, and like right away you're like kind of indoctrinated and like we're a mafia. We're not just like some team, we're like a mafia. Like we have power in each other, and we like want to build each other up.
You heard it, they're the mafia. Yeah, I mean, just using a visual, it's much more empowering if you can visualize the tide raising all the ships as opposed to a mass of people trying to climb on top of each other to reach the top of the mountain. One is just aesthetically a lot more pleasing and wears less on you stress wise. And I guess this just all goes to what we've been talking about this month is that shift in mindset. And I mean, this is ancient, and by ancient I mean the great Western epic, right? The hero going out on the quest alone, overcoming. It's not as sexy as a team, working together. But Ocean's 11 was pretty entertaining, right? Like that's a team story, but that's not what we get. A lot of movies are about that individual hero doing it on their own. But that's just Hollywood. That's just fiction, because you don't see the success behind the scenes and the relationships and the struggle and all that stuff that it takes to get an individual to succeed. There's a whole community behind that, and that's what we're talking about: lifting each other up, cheering on each other's successes. It makes for a better organization, because I remember the Double Deuce back in 2010, 2011. It was a little different. The year groups were competitive, sometimes in a negative way, and there were some things about coming to work that were unpleasant, and somewhere that changed along the line, and it's good, and we want to keep that moving. Okay, so we talked about culture, talked about changing dynamics. So that question begs another one. What can we do better? What can we do to perpetuate what we have going? How do we keep the flywheel moving, for those who've read Good to Great? All right, I'll throw a curveball there. So we've talked a lot about this culture stuff as it relates to year groups, officers, pilots. How do we ensure this culture pervades down through the enlisted levels as shop leaders and officers?
Hate to be the one always talking, but I mean, I've seen this. You can do this on the road and in the squadron. When we do our mission debriefs after the mission ends, one thing that the enlisted always say is like, thank you so much for like keeping us in the loop. Like, we always felt like we knew it was happening. So like keeping them kind of like in the loop and in the know, asking for their opinions and their expertise, because I think there's that level of respect also that translates. And to go to your previous question too, like what can we continue to do? One thing that I love and like was awesome when I first came in were the heritage huddles. And I just like, it wasn't just like officer, it was like everyone in the squadron would come together and we'd have a beer together and we'd be talking and we'd be hailing and farewelling everyone, regardless of job. And I think it was awesome because you got to meet people that you otherwise wouldn't have ever met. And like everyone's super excited. It's the end of the week. We're all happy. And like, I think that is a huge part of our squadron too, is like we work during the whole week and then we're able to have fun and celebrate what we accomplished. And we would tell stories from the road and like, you'd all feel included with each other. I think that's awesome. We should continue to that too.
No, that's good. You're talking. This is going to be you next month. So you're taking the torch, but all right, Stu, hit us. What do you got?
Yeah, and relying on your senior enlisted leadership too. I know it's helped my shop out a lot to have Zelonis come in with a fresh set of eyes and kind of give me some feedback on the culture that's on the east side. So relying on the senior E's around you to gauge the ones below, the airmen and staff sergeants and senior airmen.
Yeah, this is probably where you start to make that transition that we've been talking about from doer to leader. Even if you know the answer or you think you know the answer, it's good to go talk to your NOINC, go talk to your flight chief, whoever your enlisted counterpart is, and be like, hey, here's the thing I'm working. What do you think? At a minimum, they feel included and that you care and that you want their feedback. Preferably, you get an insight that you didn't even think about, or a consideration for how something is messaged, or something you didn't think about. But a lot of stuff you're doing, you should be searching out your enlisted counterpart, because I know the boss does it with the superintendent and the shirt. I know I walk down and talk to the other RMs. you can learn a lot from them, and they will learn from you, your perspective, because just the way things are set up in the military, we think about things a little differently. So we should probably have some of that crosstalk to make everyone better. Any more thoughts on things we can improve or keep doing, maintaining culture, etc.? This is kind of the random thoughts section of the talk. So go ahead and shoot.
I'll just speak from the personal perspective. I think one of the battles that I struggle with, face kind of on a regular basis, is feeling like I enjoy the work that I do and the culture in the squadron, but sometimes that's sort of in direct conflict with my spouse and her feeling like the squadron gets a lot more of me than she does, and certainly the fires didn't help that. That was certainly a traumatic time, probably for a lot of spouses, and then to be asked to pull away, and kind of just be left to their own, for good reason, but that's a really hard thing to explain. So I think how we reinvest here in the next month or two in our families, when in a time of crisis we really couldn't be there for them, could be something that we could potentially look at.
Yep, that definitely sucked. Where was I? I think I was in Germany and then Afghanistan, and the wife was packing up 4 kids and running up to Granite Bay, and I felt kind of bad, but yeah, I got to do something nice for her this weekend. Anyone else? Anybody who hasn't chimed in? Thoughts on how the squadron's doing? Things we can improve on. Oh, that's good, Sparky. Yeah, hop on in.
You guys can always shoot stuff VFR direct to Cosmo after this. I know I'm on the Zoom call, but we want feedback, guys. I love it. Lily, thanks for sharing the heritage huddles. We're gonna keep trying to crush through that. It's tough with COVID, right? Trying to get folks on there, and just doesn't have that same feel as if when you were standing in the heritage room, right, amongst everybody, and we got the thing packed, and you could just feel the energy in the room. We still have that energy when we get about 10, 15 folks in there, and then we're zooming it, but it's just not the same. We are taking advantage of that, and we got new furniture coming into the heritage room, so that's just some good stuff there. I got a fight on a phone call. I got Sparky laughing next to me because he heard the conversation that we were getting called out. I was getting called out for spending too much money on some stools and some pub chairs, and I just said, write me up. I don't care, because it's part of our culture. We're gonna have badass stuff because we're a badass squadron. I don't think I'll get fired for it, but I may have a conversation with my boss. But
shoot out. You've been shoot out before.
You got to get. I'll get shoot out. I've been shoot out before. It's no big deal. But yeah, part of this culture is something you got to keep tabs on, and I try to watch it as best I can, guys. But it's tough because we're not around each other. So these muley days with the muley clubs, we're trying to Zoom as much as we can. We got this drive-in movie theater event in our parking lot on the 18th. We're going to have a off-site here down in Texas in November. We're trying to work through with the flight leadership on up. So there's a plug if you want to be a flight commander. You're going to go on a badass off-site with the squadron leadership. And even down to like what Joel talked about, right? It's tough, guys. It's that I'm not going to say there's balance with your family. There's definitely harmonization. And each family's different, right? Hopefully you all saw that letter that I wrote last night, and just hopefully it struck a chord with you. But these things they're not going to go away, right? And you got to make time for your family. When I say make that time, I'm talking like put leave on the calendar 30 days out, 45 days out, and just block it off. I struggle with it weekly, with my family. It's not easy leaving here late, and I try not to. I don't want to have that image going out to seeing me leaving so late and looks like a crappy life, because it's not. It's awesome. I love my job, but I do realize that you gotta have balance, right? So I'm glad Joel brought that up, because I'm not gonna put lipstick on a pig and say that not everybody has struggles, because we all do with that aspect. But we're gonna get after it. We're gonna do what we can do and create the space when we can. I have a feeling things are gonna dip down again after October into November after the election, and we're gonna see a slowing, if you will. We only had 2 jets on the road from November to December, a constant like RDAP. And I'm hoping we can have a Christmas or holiday party, I should say, as well. But keep feeding the feedback, guys. Keep passing Cosmo, passing it to Forlini and Shoney, right? Because if we're not reflecting inward and seeing how we can be better, then we're not getting after the, being the best team we can be. That's my kind of closing comments, Cosmo. I don't know if you were already there yet, but.
No, that was good. And I just have a few notes as we're getting ready to wrap up here. So I fully intend on this being my. Heather, go ahead.
Sorry, that was an accident.
It's all good. Okay, so just as a wrap up, I fully intend on this being my last OPD for a while. Lily has got the stick for the month of September. Sorry, Dave Brown, you jumping in?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am. Sorry, I've been helping Mike. It's school and classes and session, so just kind of go over some things with him just now. But I heard about the culture piece. I heard about the books and things that were kind of thrown out. I heard my man Joel Loftus talk about the whole balance perspective. There's a book that I'm about to start now. It's called The One Thing. It's by a guy named Kellerman, and he talks about balance and stuff like that, and how the idea of balancing is just that. It's an idea. It's very hard to get that balance that we all want. So he talks about doing more with less, cutting back on time you spend in the business and getting that time back with your family. Sorry if y'all hear that, Mike. The kids in this class, they talk a lot. One of them does, exactly. But but one of the things, man, I will say, and it's kind of been like, I've been going back and forth with it, honestly, is I think a big piece of the culture in the 22nd is us understanding each other, or making an attempt to understand each other. Obviously, the coronavirus is actually happening all around the world, but I feel like in America, we definitely are dealing with other things as well. And one of those things is this act of racism, and the thing with people of color just happened a couple of days ago, actually. So just having those conversations with people, I think people definitely take what's going on differently. Each of us are affected differently. And then I think you also have some people who feel as though they can't say anything because it doesn't necessarily affect them. And I feel like in the 22nd, we do a great job. We already had the conversations about this, the events that happened last time with the shootings and stuff. And I really appreciate everyone reaching out and asking, am I okay? I would say keep doing that, because even though you think that you can't affect the situation or affect, African Americans and stuff, you can, just by asking, is that person okay? And reaching out to that individual. So I really love the 22nd and how we do a great job of pulling people in, talking to each other, caring for each other. And I really say I appreciate that. So, but I think, I think we need to have another conversation about, exactly what's going on in the world. I think we definitely can address that, because we have a serious problem. And I would like for us to attack that, because being in the Air Force, you feel as though you can't say something, you can't engage in certain conversations about what's going on. But I feel like with this platform and Colonel Kramer and then Lily and Paul going forward, I feel like we can definitely attack some of the issues at hand and get on top of that, so people don't feel left out in the 22nd because of color or things that are going on outside the world. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I just want to say, Dave, thanks for having the courage, man, to have these conversations, because for one, they're not easy, right? And everybody wants to just, go to heritage huddles, go to parties, just pound our chest, go to the the crew barbecues on the road and just say everything's rosy and fine, right? But it's not, right? There's always going to be a certain element of discrimination as long as humans exist on this planet, because we're all going to look a little bit different, right? And like I said at my first commander's call, because the way I was born, guys, and the way I grew up, I can't empathize the way I need to. But you know what? That's not going to stop me from trying to have the conversations and understand each other's backgrounds, understand each other's biases, right? And defeat those unconscious biases that are bad, that are unhealthy for our culture, right? Because one thing we can control is how this family reacts, right? How this family works together and builds those bonds. So Dave, I just want to say thanks for sharing that. I had a great conversation with Miko when him and I sat down in my office and talked on his way out. And I just, I love you guys for having those conversations, right? And having the courage to talk about it. So something we're not going to get, you're not going to see me stop talking about, period, dot. And just like I kind of related to doing push-ups. The first time you did a push-up when you were 5 years old, you were like, this sucks and it's hard. But guess what? You do it more and more often. Those push-ups get easier. Those conversations get easier. And before you know it, you're a family that may not look the same, but believes in the same culture, right? Believes in the same inalienable rights that we all fight for. So, yeah, thank you.
Anyone else want to jump in before we start wrapping up? Okay, I'll start to close. Thanks everybody for participating in the talk. Hopefully you find these productive, cathartic. I at least like seeing people's faces. All you people turning off your cams, it's weak. So just a plug for the Chief Pilot Office. I'll be in for the next little bit. So if you haven't stopped by to talk about your hopes, dreams, wishes, and career goals, I do want to have FaceTime with everybody. So please come in, let's have a talk. I just stuck a diffuser in the office so it smells decent. It's for Lily. We don't want a nasty office. I just had some custom portraits made, so you'll be able to check those out on the wall pretty soon. And I got ginger ale, Diet Coke, beers, and iced tea. So feel free to come in whenever. The summer VML cycle is going to start being a conversation here. So, if you're going to be on that VML, I'll probably touch base with a few people and we'll just start putting some ideas together for the future. If you're a first assignment person and haven't replied to the email I sent out a month ago, I just sent a third reminder today. There's 9 of you left, so please respond to that. Holiday leave, the lottery will take place on the 31st. So if you have not emailed me your preferences, please do so you're not left out in the cold. And then a plug for our Muley or Double Deuce Cloud on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And that's about it. So next week, we're trying to put together a special PD. It may be a joint thing. It might be just the officers, but the DO, the commander, we want to kind of do a hot wash of, the fires and the evac, and we may have a guest speaker. We've just been talking that out. So we were going to have a break next week, but now it looks like we're going to do that. So we'll let you know as soon as we get something on the books. And then the week after that, Lily has the airplane. So that's all I got. I'll hang out for a few as everyone checks off, if anybody wants to talk, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.